Welcome back to Unplug It. It was another week, another opportunity missed. The inability to play consistent football across 4 quarters has plagued us on so many occasions this season. This was just another That's So St Kilda performance, outplayed and just barely in it throughout the first half, and then putting together a withering burst of real football to take the lead in the third quarter, only to concede 4-0 in the last to bottle it once again. We lost 9-12-66 to the Lions, 12-9-81. We are without Darren Parkin again this week, so we've got our old friend Philip Daladakis off the bench. But before I throw to you, Phil, H, you and I were sitting in the hoity-toity area, the Medallion Club, on Friday night, and even that couldn't soothe the feeling of disappointment.
That's an elevated view of terrible football, I guess you could call it. It was, just not fun to watch when you basically put your hands in your head when your forwards take a mark inside 50. There was just no confidence on the night, thinking, well, it's one of these eventually going to go through, and which player might actually stand up and kick one finally, or as one point you lost your mind thinking, oh, the wrong player's taking the mark and that sort of thing. And it's just, it was just that frustrating. We had every opportunity to beat a top 4 bound team and hurt their finals at the same time as helping ours. And we can look back now and go, well, it was our fault. We are the reason we have missed now. It's nothing. We can't really blame much more. We can't really. We could still blame the Port Adelaide loss as well. That was pretty well our fault too. But the other results that have gone against us now, we sort of can't sit there and go, well, we couldn't help ourselves, so they couldn't really help us either.
Phil, you've whinged and moaned your way back onto the show. An incredible display of fragility and setting a wonderful example to all the kids out there who think that they need to work hard and good things will come. You have bitched and moaned your way back to this show. What was your take on Friday night's performance?
Yeah, well, before we get onto that, it is fair to say I feel like Leo Connolly here. Showing all the promise, getting the odd game, demonstrating I deserve to be in the first team, and then no explanation at all. I keep getting passed over for other people. But look, we'll put that aside. Nick, thanks for mentioning the war. Don't mention the war. But look, Friday night, I think H just said it best, right? Just same old, isn't it? And inability to convert. I think what I said very succinctly, and I'll stop on this because otherwise Parko will get angry because I just keep going and going, which was the effort was there. And, I couldn't be prouder of the effort. And as a supporter, that's, I reckon if we put that effort in, 9 times out of 10, we win most games. And the execution wasn't. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about Max King and his 6 points and the lack of execution. But it wasn't just him. Membry missed in the last, Windhager from 30 out on an angle. So the problem, of course, is that when one misses, it tends to sort of go through the team, which we've seen time and time again. But, I still think we've won one more game than we did last year. We had a number of injuries in the second half of the year. And, of course, mathematically, we're still a chance.
We are still a chance. It was funny, H. You mentioned, Phil, the effort. And I think you're right. I think I said to you, H, about 20 minutes into the first quarter, I think we were down by a goal or two at that stage already. But I think I said to you, they're having a crack. They're having a real crack. And you could tell that they were putting it out there. But it was just that decision-making and execution that we've seen over the second half of this season that has been lacking in so many key moments. And you mentioned that comment that I made to you about the wrong player taking the mark. I think it was that Windhager miss in the last quarter or late in the third.
Last quarter, marked in front of Sharman.
That's right. Cooper Sharman was standing right next to him, and they were both empty, both free players, and Windhager took the mark and obviously missed the shot. And I think, as I said, as he was lining up for goal, I said, I wish this was Cooper Sharman taking this shot. because he's such a better, he's a better option in terms of kicking for goal. He's a great kick for goal, and we haven't seen that out of Windhager yet.
He's the forward in that situation. That's right. The reason he was there.
That's right.
I mean, as good a kick as Windhager is, in that situation, you'd probably rather it in Sharman's hands.
That's right. And I think
and we're not saying this after the fact. You basically said it as soon as he's taken a mark. So it's something that sort of rode the whole way there.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like it's little things. I mean, yes, you're happy for anybody to take an uncontested mark in the forward line and have a shot at goal. Of course, that's great. That means you've done something right. But the flip side is that there were two of them there and we went the wrong option, or they went the wrong option. And I think that's just kind of indicative of the way that we play football at the moment, is that a lot of the time the effort is there and sometimes that goes missing. And we are sorely found out when that happens. But interestingly, in this one, for this game, we won most of the major metrics with or without the ball. I mean, we won the disposals, both kicking and handballs. We took more marks. We went inside 50 more. We had the rub of the green with the free kicks. Generally, overall stoppage numbers were all in our favour. But, I mean, Phil, what's the remedy here?
Matthew Lloyd. I don't want to pour oil on the fire. That was definitely tongue-in-cheek. Look, I think, Rat said in the press conference that, some of it is technique, some of it is exhaustion, some of it is mental. So just got to keep working at it. And, he said that I think there were 30 shots during the week. He came to Marvel Stadium by himself and did kick 27-3. But again, were those 30 shots after he did 4 100-meter sprints and was exhausted and testing his technique and his physical attributions at that point? Look, he's a fantastic player and everyone can see the talent. And yes, there are areas of his game that he needs to work on. We don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, spit our dummy, etc. And there will be times that he kicks 6 goals 2, or maybe he'll even kick 8 goals straight. And so I'm not hard on him in that respect. But I think, Nick, I said to you earlier today, and I certainly mentioned this to another one of our guests recently, Francis Leach, where we had lamented the fact that in watching the game, it didn't appear to us that any senior players had, or any players, in fact, had got around Max to just tell him, take his time. Don't worry about the last one. We'll get the next one. And if you miss the next one, don't worry about that one. You'll get the one after, and you're at least presenting and getting the opportunity, which is, first and foremost, the critical response. And we were disappointed in that. And then, of course, what happens 24 hours later, Nick Riewoldt says the same on the couch. So, Rui, well done for sneaking a look at my private text messages. But, again, I'm not sure that we need to be overtly critical of Max King, because, as I said, Tim Membry, Windhager, others also missed at that point in time. And of course, can we not reflect on the fact that they scored 3 goals over the back in that fourth quarter and allowed some of our defence to be found wanting as well?
Is there nothing that the great Nick Riewoldt cannot do? He can obviously play football. He has beautiful children, a beautiful wife, and a great family, and now is hacking former MPs' mobile phones and checking the text messages. What an incredible career this guy's had. I guess, now that we're on to Max King, I think there's a couple of points that we can probably touch on. And I think you're right. I think that, for us to do this responsibly, I think we have to, share. The blame doesn't solely rest on Max King. There are a number of players that also missed very easy and kickable shots at goal on Friday night. But I think that the club has to share some of the blame here and some of the responsibility in how to fix this issue. You mentioned before, he's had 30 shots at goal at Marvel and kicked 27-3. But how does that help in game time? It doesn't. And there's a number of things that a number of experts have brought up, whether it's Lloyd or any other goal kickers. Jason Dunstall over the last 18 months has said, his piece on various TV and radio shows. And the other thing is, on game day, what is the club doing to support Max King? And one of the things, far be it for me to call Kane Cornes an expert, but one of the examples that he brought up was whenever Geelong aren't playing well, something breaks down in their structure or system or whatever it is, that the coaches, the footy department are out at the next break with the laptops showing the players who did the wrong thing, who made the mistake, who fluffed it or whatever, showing them the mistake and showing them how to get better. When Max King is missing shots at goal and is clearly stressed and is tense and he's flipping the ball around and doing a whole bunch of things, he's walking in super slow and trying, like, every single kick is a different routine or zero routine. Where are the coaches and where is the staff going out to calm him down and say, mate, settle down, walk in straight and just kick it? Like, where are these guys showing him what he's doing wrong on game day? You have to trust that they're doing stuff during the week to try and rectify these issues, but what are they doing on game day to actually settle him down and make sure that he's in the right mindset and frame of mind and all that sort of stuff to get him right, I guess, during the game? Because we all know that training at Moorabbin on a Tuesday or a Thursday is incredibly different to playing at Marvel on a Friday night for so many reasons. But I guess it's not all doom and gloom. We know that it hasn't been the season that we all thought it was potentially going to be about 10 weeks ago, but there are some other young players outside of Max King who have shown a bit. We've seen Windhager. We've seen Mitch Owens do a bit, Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller. We saw Jack Hayes at the start of the year. I mean, there is enough to get excited about, H.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we went through a lot of that last week as who we've got coming through in the team, who basically we need to play football and get him in playing together, because that is the core that's going to take us forward. Get that core together, get them playing together. I mean, we've seen what they can all do already. And a number of them we're picking before senior players at the moment. And that's the that's the big up of them, that they're almost automatic conclusions. Windhager, you would not drop. Owens has almost got to a point where you go, he should be in the team. Wanganeen-Miller was at that stage as well. He's obviously haven't played a couple of games now, but at the same time, you wouldn't be dropping Max King either. So he's in that group as well. And we've only got a couple of players who are going to probably drop off, but that group that we've got it's basically a group that we'll move forward with. Wood, you got all these names that he popped up on the weekend, and probably one of the reasons why we're probably still in the match in the last quarter. That just getting that core group together, playing consistent football. Let's make sure that this is what happens. We don't want to lose any of them. Keep them playing. Just keep them playing week in, week out. First game next year, let's have an average age of about 23. That would be fantastic, because that's about the point you launch from at a flag contention. I think the average age over the last 20 years has been like 24 and a half or something. So that's a launching point for us. Get a year and a half into them, and there. We'll hopefully we don't drop off again, and work with what we got, and we're talking about Max. Let's get his head right. I think his issue is he's possibly overthinking things. He's getting the ball. There's no confidence in not getting the ball. He's just a little bit overthinking it, I think, and that's what is happening. He's just got to get his head in the game. And as we've been saying many, many times, he could tear many teams apart if he wanted to, but he's just got to get his head in the game and get it right.
So you say he's overthinking it. I wonder whether he's not thinking it enough, because on each of his approaches, he had a different approach. on some approaches, they were short, some they were longer, some he spun the ball, some he kept the ball still. And so for me, that indicates somebody that's not confident in the setup. And, because I'm naturally so much older than both of you, remember the early part of Stuart Lowe's career where, every time he grabbed the ball, you were like, I hope someone's running past for him to hand pass it off to. And then the big change when Peter Hudson spent all the time getting his technique right. And then by the end of his career at the club, we were hopeful that he was the one having the set shot for goal because he had his routine, he had it down pat, and of course that routine would see him through kicking more goals than points, which differentiated the beginning part of his career. And so I wonder whether, and I do this with my golf swing, that when I'm trying to rebuild my golf swing, when I don't hit a good shot, I go back to the old swing. And the answer is not to do that. The answer is to still stick with what you're working on. The problem, of course, is in the heat of game time, you can become susceptible. And so that's where, obviously the discussion around Matthew Lloyd or somebody else comes into vogue, because they just need to settle on a routine. And that's what I want to say. I want to see him, if it's a 12-step routine, always have a 12-step routine. If it's 5 meters, if it's 15 meters, or if it's like Ben Brown and he's going the Flemington straight, well, that's fine. Whatever works, just have something that you can repeat and repeat and repeat.
I think that's one of the things I saw Matthew Lloyd on the Sunday Footy Show talking about all of the things that I guess need to be rebuilt in Max King's goal kicking routine. And it wasn't just the flipping the ball around. There was a bunch of things like he doesn't move through the ball fast enough. He walks in super slow, and so there's no momentum in his kicking action. He leans back on his kick because he doesn't have the speed or power. He leans back to try and get a bit more momentum through his leg, which then pulls the ball one way or another. And so there were a range of things that need to be fixed. But I think you're right, Phil, in that ultimately for him, what he needs to do is have enough confidence in his routine, whatever that is. And not everybody's routine is the same. You've mentioned Ben Brown, but you look at Josh Kennedy, one of the greatest goal kickers of this generation, in modern football. His routine was incredibly strange. That stuttering run up, it looked bizarre, it seemed bizarre, but it was incredibly effective, and it never changed. That was his routine. As weird as it looked, it never changed, and he did what had to be done, and he kicked a shit ton of goals. And Max King is arguably a more talented, better player than Josh Kennedy for a number of reasons. He's more athletic. He's probably a better contested mark, better, stronger hands, etc. But he's got to get this kicking stuff under control because it can ruin his career. It has the ability to ruin his career, and he's too good to let that happen. H?
So where I was saying in the way of overthinking is, I think he's thinking of the result before he's doing his thinking about what the routine is to get to that point. So he's overthinking, thinking I've got to kick the goal. That's sort of where I'm coming at with that, because as you're saying, you've got to get the routine right to get the result right. But it does just seem to be that he's got it gone ahead of where he should be, thinking we're under pressure, I've got to kick this. And that's sort of where it's got into his head, and he's thinking about that too much. And just there, he always got to be thinking out is, okay, I go back, I walk in, I watch the ball into my boot, which is one thing that he seemed to not do so great. He sort of was looking at the target rather than watching the ball onto the boot. And yeah, just go back and do what you should be the best at. The best part of your game should be this goal kicking. And yeah, once he gets into his mind that that's what I've got to do every single time, then it will come to him. We saw it in Adelaide. We saw him kick. Was it 5 goals from 5 kicks or something? And
six straight, I think he kicked that night.
6 from 6 kicks. It's that's minimal opportunity, You can't have less kicks to kick 6 goals. He was 100% perfect on that night. And then we see on Friday night the total opposite. So it's not like he can't do it. And that's our thing. We need to say, you can do it, Max. You know what you've got to do. Don't just stop that thinking about what's happening around you. Just do what you need to do to kick it.
So let's flip it now, 180, and talk about how awesome it was that he had 6 shots, how awesome it was that he had some amazing contested marks and contested play and second efforts to be able to get into the position where he was able to snap for goal, etc. And focus on the positives there, because I would rather a guy have 6 shots and play a game like he did than have some other passengers playing some bruise-free football. We haven't spent any time on them, but that's human nature as well. And so, Max, if you're listening, or if any of your family or friends do, mate, don't stop doing what you're doing. We're just talking about how to make you incrementally even better.
How to make you even more unbeatable. That's probably the way to do it. Because, as we're saying, he's got no problem getting it. There is absolutely no problem getting it. He's probably the best player above 195 centimetres at ground level. There's no players who, at their feet, are better than him at that height. He's got that unbeatable, I guess. He's that sort of unbeatable player if he's switched on the night. And yeah, we'll see it more often. That's for sure. So yeah, I mean, if that's what we've seen in the first few years of his career, we are really going to expect big things coming up.
I think it is important to remember the good things that he does. I mean, he's what, 22, 21, and he's had 90 shots on goal this year. He's second in the league for contested marks. I think he's got the most contested marks inside 50, I think, in the league, or second in that metric too. So this kid can play. Like, he can seriously play football, but it's this one thing that lets him down. And no footballer is perfect, right? There's no perfect footballer that does everything at an elite level. It just, that player doesn't exist. But if he can fix this one area of his game, that's the thing that elevates him from a very good player to a superstar. Like, that's the difference. And he could be sitting on 70 goals and we're not having this discussion. He could be sitting on 80 goals. We're not having this discussion. But he's kicked 47, 41 for the year. And, when you're having that amount of shots, and you have that sort of unbeatable talent that you guys have both mentioned in terms of finding the ball, getting the ball, and getting into position to have shots at goal, you do, I guess, expect a better conversion rate. And for us to be a force moving forward, I think our entire team and our football department and all our fans are entitled to expect better in that regard. But you're right. I think it's wrong of us to not remember some of those things when there's one of these big things that's kind of staring us in the face, that we've got to look back at these things that he does really, really well, because that's the hallmark of his game. I guess, Phil, you talked about other players and some of the other things, and we might talk about some of those things a little bit later in the show when we start looking at the Sydney game. But I guess to wrap up this one, some votes and honourable mentions. H, what have you got to kick us off?
Well, I'll grab Parko's ones just firstly. He's sent him in to us. Just a quick rundown for him. He gave one to Wilkie, 2 to Ross, and 3 his best on ground was Wood. I've got a few different ones in there, so I've actually gave 1 to Rowan Marshall. I thought his work in the middle was huge. He it was up against probably one of the form ruckman in the league. And his clearance work off his own rucking was quite brilliant at times. I don't think I've seen a ruckman do it that much in a game, except for the likes of probably Max Gawn. The player and the managers get the ball out of the ruck themselves and then put it straight into our forward 50, which he, for the first half, I think I lost count of how many times he actually did that. Doing the same thing, clearing out the back line as well. His work against Big Oscar was really good on the night. A couple of quiet patches where he sort of dropped off a little bit, which probably, it was a bit, I guess in the last quarter, was maybe a little bit quieter than what he had been all the rest of the night. But otherwise, he had a really, really solid night. Two to the Windhager. It's a brilliant shutdown job, that one was. So get Brownlow favourite, looking for a couple of late season votes to try and get himself over the line, and you could just see the frustration on him and his teammates around him, because the amount of times I saw someone trying to stand between Neil and Windhager and stop him, basically hanging off the back of him, and I'm not saying hanging off the back of him by holding him. He was legally just keeping him away from the ball. We got to remember, I don't think we had there was no holding free kicks against him all night, I don't believe.
No, he had four frees for and none against, I think.
Yeah, so that's as good as you can do. I think the free kicks came from opponents being frustrated, from him, getting to the ball first after keeping Neil away from it. So the Rising Star nomination, well overdue, but well deserved at the same time. It's probably, you look back now and go, it's probably the week that he actually probably deserved it more than any other week. And 3, I gave to Mason Wood as well. He just found the ball up forward, and 4 goals, and just he kept us in the game. And there's I think probably 3 of the goals he kicked were at points where Brisbane had been beating us for 10, 15 minutes, and he's popped up and not on the easiest angles or the simplest kicks. A bomb from outside 50, a snap from about 45. He did it from everywhere. So, and around the ground, gave plenty of service. So, his best game for us by an absolute mile. And it's just showed that what he can provide us. And he's probably one of those players that we keep in the team just to make sure that, we're moving forward as a group together, as I was saying before.
Phil, what have you got for us?
Not too different. So 3 votes, Mason Wood. Was just an outstanding game, which is what you need from players like Mason, who are anywhere between 10 to 22 on that list in terms of their performance, but their performance then lifts them up to top 3. That's where you win games of football. Jack Steele, from memory, had about 13 possessions, was kept really quiet on the night. And so that's going to happen from time to time. I mean, we're talking about the job that Windhager did on Neil, and what a tremendous job it was. And that wasn't to say that Lachie Neale had a poor game, but he had a poor game by his standards, and 13 possessions for Jack Steele is a very poor game by his standards. So 3 votes to Mason Wood. 2 votes I gave to Brad Crouch, and it was a toss-up. This is kind of funny because it was a toss-up between him and Seb Ross, and I've got a bit of a fan crush developing on Seb Ross this year, because I think he's been tremendous. In fact, I think it's been his best year of football at the Saints, and given that I've heard him talk about some of the lack of sleep as a result of his newborn. Well, if that's what it takes, we should keep him up next year as well. So
I thought you were about to say have another.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there is that too. And then even though I thought Seb Ross could easily have got the 2 votes, I'm giving 1 vote to Windhager as well. And I thought that, he's been outstanding for 3 weeks now. He's had a great season, and he he has deserved the Rising Star nomination on each of the last 3 weeks, but been pipped by performances that other people deemed were superior. And I want to challenge that right now, because the people that he's played on and beaten, Jai Newcombe at Hawthorn, obviously Lachie Neale, and then 3 weeks ago. What's that?
Tim Kelly.
Yeah, Tim Kelly. Right. And these are all guys that have big bodies, and they're seasoned footballers. So for him as a first year to come in, and I know that he's well developed himself, but that doesn't give you the edge, and it doesn't give you the experience the way that he's done it. And the thing that's impressed me most about his game is not that he's locked down. People have missed this week in talking about his Rising Star nomination. It wasn't that he locked down on Lachie Neale. It was that he locked down on Lachie Neale and was so creative for us going forward. And that is what I'd love people to focus on when looking at his last 3 weeks, because he stopped his opponent but was quite offensive in his own movement of the ball going forward, and also the meters gained and his possessions as well. So, I think that's a tremendous attribute for him to be getting. And also, let's be clear, the coaches for giving him that opportunity and saying, mate, you run with them. This is your job to stop them, but it's also your job to create. And at a time when we can also forget to praise moves that the coaches make, I think that needs to be identified as well.
Very well said. I've gone pretty similar to both of you and Parker, I guess, to some extent. But I'm exactly the same as you. I've given some honourable mentions to Seb Ross. I thought he was fantastic again. As you said, Phil, I think this has been his best year for a long time. And I think I mentioned last week or the week before that I feel like his football now is better than in his best and fairest winning seasons. I gave another honourable mention to Brad Crouch and Jack Sinclair. I thought they were both very good. And Jared Lynott, I thought, was a bit of a quiet achiever. I thought he did a bit of everything for us. It took some intercept marks. He was creative off halfback. Even went into the ruck a couple of times around the ground, and just he's one of those players. We talk about the Jason Blake Award, and Jared Lynott has that ability to play multiple roles and fill gaps as we need. But I gave 1 vote to Rowan Marshall, 20 touches, 42 hitouts, 7 clearances. You mentioned his clearance work, H. I thought he was phenomenal and has really come into his own as the number 1 ruck. And I think I was pretty nervous early in the year about what our future looks like with Rowan as our number 1 ruck, as opposed to with a legitimate tap ruckman and Rowan being that kind of combo ruck forward. But he's answered every one of those questions over the last 5 or 6 weeks. He's been amazing. And, I would be, while I'd be loath to lose Paddy Ryder, I think that Rowan Marshall's ready to be a number 1 ruck. 2 votes, Marcus Windhager, for all those reasons that you guys have mentioned already. 21 touches, 5 clearances, 1 Lachie Neale in his pocket, and a Rising Star nomination is a pretty decent night out. And 3 votes to Mason Wood. This is the second week in a row I've given 3 votes to Mason Wood. Another 15 touches at 80% disposal efficiency, 3 intercepts, doing it all up and down the wing. Incredibly creative, but also doing some of the hard work that I don't think you tend to notice with Mason Wood. A lot of hard running, and obviously the 4 goals that kind of kept us in it at really opportune moments. A really dynamic forward option, and gave us a lot of ball movement off the wing and an option up forward as well. So that just about wraps up the Lions game. Our guest this week had his own trials and tribulations in a short career with St Kilda, but his kicking for goal routine and accuracy was not one of them. I talk, of course, of Ahmed Saad.
Margin is 19. Saints have kicked the only 4 goals of the match. They have been dangerous when they've got it in there, and they are again. Saad, Mills already kicked 3. The Red Pat have started well. He runs in and puts it through for another.
Weaves some magic to Saad. He drops it. Back in, gets it. Can't get a toe on it. Second time he does. Saad stays down, back of the pack. What a perfect read that was. Ahmed Saad off the pad, goal. Hatful right with him in front. Knocked away. Montagna rolls it to full forward. Saad again. Johnny. Deja vu.
Looked like he'd done well again, Patfull, but Montagna got the ball forward.
Nudging slightly on the ball to him. Comes back. Step by Saad. Gathers. Thought about the bounce around the corner. This would be life. And let's have a look at this from Saad. There's a little funny little bounce coming up here. Look at that one. It's like a little basketball bounce. He made something out of nothing there, and that's what you have to do.
Well, I guess this week had, I guess you could call it an unconventional career in the AFL. And we've spoken a bit about Max King in the last few weeks and months and his kicking style. And one thing that we never really had to worry about was the routine of Ahmed Saad lining up for goal. Ahmed, thanks for joining us.
No worries at all. I had to give you guys a break, go to the toilet, get a coffee, give my teammates a rest as well. So,
no, good times. I guess before we hand over to the other guys, I wanted to ask you about your kicking style and routine and the incredibly long run-ups that you were known for. But where did that come from?
Well, because I started footy late, I started at 16 and I couldn't drop punt. And I remember my first year of footy, as a forward, because I used to play soccer and I used to play in the forward line when I played soccer. So I loved kicking goals. So I thought then I've transitioned to footy. I'd play forward, kick some goals as well. And I figured that in my first couple of games, if I took a mark and have a shot, I never really kind of had a routine. And spoke to my uncle who had a very similar routine to mine, but his is only like 13 steps, walks, and then the last couple of steps get that momentum. And then I tried to do that, but I just found myself just kept walking until I felt comfortable to kick. And I guess for me, it was just more about, how can I minimize dropping the ball awkwardly on my foot? I need to make sure I kicked it straight, to get my body straight. So, initially I tried to keep it really basic when I first started, and it just ended up walking a long way to kind of get there. But luckily it worked. Otherwise, I would have had to change it pretty quickly because, it kind of copped a little bit of heat on it. But I think, it worked. So I actually could back it up, which helped, luckily.
I was going to say, take us through your early career, because you were born in Australia, but then moved away and then came back later on. So did you have interest in football when you were at that younger age before you moved away as well?
No, not really, man. When I was born here, and when I was 8 years old, I moved to Egypt, and obviously in Egypt, soccer's like religion over there. So, and up until then, never really played football. And when I got to Egypt, I played soccer like everyone else did. And then when I got back when I was 14, I thought, I'd continue to play soccer because that's all I kind of knew. For about 2 years, didn't really work out. Didn't enjoy it as much. Couldn't get to training anymore. My family moved houses, moved suburbs. I moved schools. So I had to make new friends. And all my mates at school played at the club across the road from my house in the school, which was Roxburgh Park. And I needed numbers for the under-16s team. And like I said, at that time, I could not even drop punt or even, watch a lot of footy then. But I thought there's a way to stay connected with these guys and, continue to have friends outside of school and stay fit as well, and just walk across the road to fill in the numbers and continue to play sport, because that's all I loved, growing up. And luckily enough, that's pretty much how my journey started, really.
So in terms of your run-up, have you sent a letter to Ben Brown telling him that unless he pays you royalties, he's not allowed to stop you?
Yeah, he pays me royalties. So every set shot he takes, I get $10. But his one's very similar. It's pretty long, but he runs a fair bit, I think. So it's not as fun. It's pretty selfish. Doesn't get everyone a break. At least I walked, so everyone got an opportunity to get a rest, go to the toilet, like I said, get a quick coffee. I was kind of selfless that way.
Now, in terms of your career, you've got two young sons, and I just know that they're going to be superstars, but we're not going to be able to draft them because you didn't get to 100 games with St Kilda. with your career finishing the way that it did, were there any clubs that came to you? Was there any talk about possibly playing at a different AFL club?
Initially, obviously, when I got drafted to the Saints, I went to the draft combine like a lot of the players did and spoke to a lot of clubs then. That was a normal process. And but after I got back, when I was banned, for the 18 months, I had a few clubs reach out then and have a chat to me. I actually got a commitment from a club that they were going to pick me up. And the Saints obviously picked me up, and then I didn't stayed at the Saints, which I was happy to go back to. And but then the third time around, after I kind of got delisted at the end of that year, again I spoke to some clubs. A couple of things just didn't go my way. A player didn't retire when it was meant to. They ended up picking another club. Ended up picking a player similar to me in that position. So a lot of things didn't fall my way, which was totally fine. And I was obviously old enough by then to understand how it works, and went back to play VFL for one more year just to give it another crack. And I thought that year I had a pretty good year. I won the VFL goal kicking team of the year. I was playing on AFL forward, listed backman every week in the VFL, and I was kicking the goals on them. So I thought I gave myself the opportunity, but it just wasn't meant to be. And possibly my age might have played a factor, or other things. But I was pretty content with how obviously would have loved to have a 10 to 15-year career like everyone would. But I was very grateful that I got to play AFL footy when a lot of people haven't, and I still got to live my dream a little bit. Yes, it was uninterrupted, unfortunately, but I guess that was just how my life was meant to play out.
I'm sure we'll circle back to the ban a little bit later on, and we might drill you a little bit harder about some of those clubs and some of those other conversations that Phil's just asked about. But I do want to ask you about something that happened early in your career, and the story goes that you would never have been an AFL player unless your mum, obviously a very good ethnic, Egyptian mother, forced you to get down to the Northern Bull Ants and run into a training session without an invitation.
Yeah, so that's spot on. So I had a friend who actually got an invite that I played with at Roxbury Park, and he got an invite to the Bull Ants, and I thought, well, I feel like I'm better than this guy, and he got the invite and I didn't. And he didn't go for the first. I was waiting for him to go, so I was like, I'll go with him, and then I could potentially ask if I can get a training session. And he didn't go for the first week and decided not to go at all. And after that first week, my mum's like, why don't you just go anyway? Since when do you need to wait for somebody to, pursue something that you want? So she kind of, gave me the kind of courage a little bit just to go do it. And I was a bit hesitant because, no invitation. And back then, they're pretty strict on you have to get a letter, you have to get an invitation. And so I thought, you know what, I might as well because I didn't want to regret anything. She obviously encouraged me to go down, and I went down. And lucky enough, I spoke to David Teague at the time, who was the head coach at the Northern Bull Ants. And Gary O'Sullivan was the GM, and I kind of got to them, and they're like, hey, mate, Gary O'Sullivan's like, hey, do you have a letter of invitation? Like, what are you doing here? And I was like, look, I don't have one, but just give me one session. If you don't want me, I won't come back. And David Teague overheard that conversation. He came across and he goes, I respect, that you obviously you're kind of coming here to give yourself an opportunity to play. So he goes, just give him a session and we'll see how we go, So luckily enough, I had a really good training session. I rocked up with no boots. Because at local footy back then at Roxbury Park, you just literally training runners. The ground's shocking. So I rocked up to VFL training at Busy Park at the time with no boots, just shorts and a t-shirt. Looked like I was just a kid off the street. So they're thinking, what have we done here? But luckily enough, I impressed them, and I earned myself a pre-season, and stayed there for 3 years.
Is there any players that you kind of, I guess, modelled the way you played the game, or was there anyone at the club that you tried to, I guess, jump onto and learn a few things from? And we had the similar players of Milne and Schneider, both sort of getting towards the end of their careers at the time. And did you sort of pick their brains a fair bit and just, I guess, try to learn their craft, knowing sort of the history the players had?
Yeah, no, definitely. Those two in particular, especially Milne and Schneider, they were awesome for me, especially when I first got to the club. Obviously played a very similar role to them, and Milne was probably one of the best at it in terms of his crumbing and his craft around goal, and even at training when we play in the same forward line, and I feel like I'm just about to get this crumb and I can see it coming in my hand, and it comes Milne, takes it off me or gets it that second before me. I'm thinking, mate, this guy's unbelievable. So he was someone I picked his brain a fair bit. Used to watch my tape with him, and even Schneider as well. When the second time I got back into the Saints, Milne had retired by then. So, those two guys played a massive role in my development. And there were two, obviously, players that I looked up to definitely when I was at the club.
Can I ask you about your coaches that you've had? Can you talk about, not rate your coaches, but talk about what the differences were in your coaches, whether it be VFL or at AFL level, what you learned from them, what you've taken with you, and those coaches that you, in hindsight, that if you'd listen to them a little bit harder or taking something on board. I'm really interested in your relationship with the coaching groups.
Well, yeah, like I said, David Teague was the coach at the Bull Ants when I first got there, and he was, I think, one of my favourite coaches that I had. Someone that really cared about his players and that relationship and that culture at the club. He kind of created a really good environment and someone that, like I said, I hadn't played footy for long. It was 3 years that I just picked up a footy and I went to an VFL system and had to learn about forward craft when playing at Roxburgh Park, Division 2, as a forward. And I was faster than everybody. I was quicker than everyone, so I could sit in the forward line, kick me the ball, and I used to just focus on kicking goals. And that's all I really care about as a forward player back then. And then got to the Bull Ants, and he obviously taught me a lot of things that I hadn't known before about footy because I had only played for a short amount of time. And he said, obviously, as a small forward, these are the things that we need from you, and these are the things that you need to improve on and work on if you want to come back and play senior footy next year. So he was really good for my development. Someone I actually still speak to. So he's someone that definitely helped me. And then when I got to the Saints, it was Scott Waters had just got the job, and he was someone that I got along really well with, and I think backed me in, and I think he liked the way the style I played, and kind of just had confidence in me and gave me that confidence to just go out and play the way I play. And because I had, again, only played for a short amount of time, I used to play a lot on instinct. Yes, I understand forwards need to put pressure on, and defensive pressure is so important in our game, but I had the offensive element where, I could kick goals, and I found that was kind of what I was probably better at. And he backed me in, and he was someone that also, when I was banned, I used to go out and we used to do a session a week for a while. And he was someone that kind of, reached out to me while I was banned. He wasn't at the Saints then. I think he got sacked as well, but he was someone that really helped me through my ban period, and was a really good soundboard and mentor through that time as well. So I had a really good relationship with him. And then Richo, after my ban, he was obviously the coach then. Initially, yeah, I think we had a good relationship, and I think I'm not too sure if he maybe didn't like how I played, or I don't know where it fell apart there, because I played the first 4 games, and then really didn't get a game after that. So obviously there's a number of things. Could have been my form, could have been, whatever it is, whether maybe I just didn't suit the way he wanted me to play or whatever it is. I'm not too sure. But yeah, obviously that kind of didn't really work out. So because he got rid of me after that year. So they're the 3 kind of coaches. And then obviously lived with Grant Thomas, who was an ex-St Kilda coach in my first year, because I was best mates with his son. And he was someone that, again, probably was my favourite mentor, and someone that after every game I'd speak to, before every game I'd call when I was on the way, and someone that obviously, took me into their house in the first year when obviously I lived too far to be able to drive to Seaford and back. It took me an hour and a half, and, obviously I was best friends with his son, so they kind of moved me into their house, and that was awesome, and I loved living there. And I think the first year I had such a good first year, and I think a lot of that credit goes to him as well, to be honest.
Child number 28 for Grant in the house.
Yeah, I was the 30th child there, so it was good.
So take us back to, I guess, that draft period. I mean, you had a pretty good year in the VFL. You kicked 50 goals in 2010. You went into that draft combine, and like you said, you're one of the quickest blokes there. I think you might have won one of the sprint tasks and whatnot, pretty good on the agility metrics and stuff as well. And you get pre-selected by GWS and then traded to St Kilda. But how did all that, I guess, happen at your end? I mean, when a player gets traded like that, and it was a very unusual situation for the AFL, we hadn't had kind of pre-selections and then on trading and that sort of stuff before. So what was that like for you?
So I was actually when that was going on, I was in Bali or Thailand for footy trip with the Bull Ants boys and with Tyson as well, who was obviously one of my close mates. And I ended up, like I said, moving into their house. And initially, it wasn't really about GWS discussions at all. It was just more with Saints. They kind of messaged me while I was there and said, hey, my manager first messaged saying, hey, the Saints are pretty keen. This is what might happen. And then at the time, I got a message from Tony Alshaw saying, hey, mate, how would you like to, become a Saint? And I said, well, of course I'd love to. And I had spoken to them pre-draft camp and at draft camp. So that was probably my third time speaking to them. So I knew they were pretty interested. And then, yeah, once I kind of got that message, I knew this could be, a big opportunity to play AFL. And then I got another message within half an hour later saying, mate, well, congratulations, you're now a Saint. So I didn't actually know about the GWS stuff. But I think all that was they were new AFL clubs, so they got 10 pre-listed spots so they could pick up mature age players or players that have nominated for the draft previously, just to give them a head start. And I think the way they used it was obviously pretty strategic, where they would just pick up some players and pass them off to some clubs to get some picks and stuff like that. So I was never contacted by GWS or anything like that. Even there was a lot of hype around me going to GWS when Kevin Sheedy, all that kind of stuff. But I had never really, I spoke to him probably once, but was never kind of a big, I never spoke to them initially to go to the Saints. It was always the Saints through that trade.
Now, to move on to as Nick mentioned before, the 18-month ban you copped. A lot of people may not realise that the drink that you were using at that time was actually as a legal product, but was not allowed on game day. So how did basically was from what I heard, it was something to do with a sponsorship you had going at the time or something like that. And yeah, just take us through the situation and how you got approached, and it was found to be that you shouldn't be having this on the day of a game.
Yeah, so that protein company was one of my close mates and actually a mentor at the time. He was a senior coach at Roxburgh Park when I first was there, and he was someone that supported me through my whole journey. And he obviously opened his own protein company, and I was taking it for a while. All I was doing was we were just both trying to help each other's brand. I wasn't getting paid for anything like that, but I was just two friends just trying to help each other. And obviously, I wasn't aware at that time that there was a banned substance in there. And as you just said, then it wasn't like I bought it from a dodgy bloke down the road in a truck or something. It was Australian made. It was sold in all the gyms. And the year before, so in 2012, so 2013, that's when the ban happened, like mid-year. In 2012, you could take that pre-workout and that substance that was banned, and that actually wasn't banned that year, so you could take it on game day. It was all good. But the year after, you could have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner all week, but on game day you can't obviously touch it. So I obviously wasn't aware, and that's probably my ignorance and my stupidity, where I should have went and spoke to the doctor at the time and said, hey, this is what I'm taking. Can we check if it's all good? And we're educated on that, and so that's my fault. I don't blame anyone for that. I don't blame my friend. I don't blame the club. That's me. I'll put that in my system. I'm liable, so I never blamed anyone for it. So I obviously suffered the consequences after that, which is being banned for 18 months.
Tell me, just quickly on that, was it because it was a banned stimulant and that was the game day? So the question is, to consume just one can of it, can we really expect that as a stimulant it had such a supreme effort? So on that day, what was your performance like? How did you go in comparison to days when you didn't drink it?
Well, like I said, I'd had it for a while, so it's not like it was the first time taking it. And before that week, I was actually playing in the VFL, so my form wasn't that great. And I just got picked to play in Fremantle, and that's when I got tested that day after the game. And it's not like that was the first time I was taking it. So it's not like I had, after I took it for 2 games straight, I was having 40 touches, kicking 5. It wasn't really making a big difference. And when I was going through my case, we did a toxology report on my system to see what that would actually do in my performance and what it's like. And it didn't really, like a caffeine tablet that you can take before a game, which is legal, is as strong as that stimulant. So it's all it was an alert and awareness substance. That's what was banned, that stimulant. And as I said, it's not like I was coming out and kicking 8 and getting 3 Brownlow votes every game. So I don't think it made a big difference on my performance. It's probably something I was just continue to take because it was just part of my routine.
I want to ask you a question about your post-career, but the transition. I mean, we hear a lot of players talking about how when their time comes up, it happens quite quickly. Do you feel that the system does enough to support you when you're in it about preparing you for life after football? Because for you, it came relatively quickly in comparison to players that can, have a 10-year career uninterrupted. And obviously that time that you were banned, on reflection, may have actually contributed to obviously the end of your career coming a bit quicker than it would have otherwise because of that lack of continuity. So do we help players enough do we have enough structures in place to support you on the way out? And also now that you've left, I know that you've got a role at the AFL, but if we removed your role from the AFL itself, do we do enough to support players post-career as well, not just in transition?
I think during while I was playing, I think the club and I know the AFL do a lot of work on making sure that players are doing something on their day off, whether it's a trade, whether it's studying or whatever it is. And I was probably old enough when I got drafted and knew that footy wasn't going to last forever, and I needed to do something while I was playing to set myself up. And I was a multicultural ambassador for the AFL because of my background, and there was a program there. Then I actually had my own Ahmed Saad squad where I developed young multicultural players, and I was doing that on my day off, and I'd go to trainings at night and be part of that one time a week. And that was something I was really passionate about. And I thought if I could do this and set myself up, hopefully after my 10-year career, I could come out of it with something. So I kind of always knew that my time was going to end eventually. So I wanted to make sure I'm setting myself up. And a lot of the boys do stuff. And after I got obviously delisted, because I had created relationships in the AFL and I was doing that program and I had my squad and a lot of people had taken notice, and I was lucky enough to have a good friend in Ali Fahua, who was the head of diversity at the AFL back then, and I got a role within the diversity department. And then so that's the stuff that you get support during. After it, I didn't really get contacted much after AFL. So lucky I had something, and I'm not too sure if players continue to get that support or not. But luckily, while I was playing, I kind of made sure I did something, and the club, I remember, made sure that we were all doing something. All the first of 30 players and even the older boys had to make sure that you are doing something on your day off to be able to set yourself up and to continue to promote, making sure you study, get a trade, or do something.
Speaking about player welfare and that sort of thing, you're a pretty happy-go-lucky type of guy. I mean, we saw all the footage when you were playing and training, always smiling, laughing, joking. You've been smiling all night tonight while we're chatting to you. But what is that 18-month period and that process around that, what does that do to your mental health and what could have been done, I guess, to support you more through that period?
It was definitely a tough period, like I'm a practicing Muslim, and when it all happened and my name was next to Saad takes drugs and all that kind of stuff, I was tarnishing my family name. I was only the second practicing Muslim at the time. Bash was obviously playing, but we represented a big community, and I felt like I've let that community down by all these kind of allegations of me taking drugs and all that kind of stuff, and I couldn't really get my story out there until after my case, just in case it kind of harmed it. So and then I got banned, and that was a really tough time because I worked so hard in 6 years. It took me from when I first started footy, I think it was, till the ban. So I gave it everything I had. It was an opportunity to be able to support my family. I'm not from a wealthy family, so I was able to support them financially while I was playing. And then my life dream was to be an elite athlete, and that got taken away from me. So it was really tough. And my religion got me through that, practicing my religion and getting closer to my faith and God and stuff. That actually got me through that period. And initially it was really hard. It was my first year of marriage. We just got married, and the week before my wedding was my tribunal case. So, I couldn't really enjoy that. So it was a tough period for my wife and I, even my mum calling me crying and all that kind of stuff. So mentally it was tough, but I got through it because I had a really good support network. And I had my faith that got me through that as well. So they're the two things that got me through it. My family and my support network of mentors that I had. And also, like I said, my faith and practicing my religion and really, understanding that what's meant to be, will be. And, I left everything in God's hands and I did everything I could while I got banned to be able to give myself an opportunity to get back. And if I didn't come back, well, at least I would have been content that I gave it a crack and I worked my ass off during that in that ban period to come back. And and luckily enough, I did come back, obviously not for long enough.
Tell us quickly, I guess, as a practicing Muslim, I mean, probably a lot of our listeners probably don't know a whole lot about Islam and the religion as a whole in general, but tell us a bit about your connection to your faith and I guess the connection between that and your football career. Like, how are you able to put the two together?
Well, when I first got drafted, I was the first Muslim Egyptian to get drafted to the Saints. And so I had to educate, the club and educate my teammates. And they were all willing to learn. And the club was so supportive of my faith and, made sure I had somewhere to pray because as a Muslim, you pray 5 times a day. And I needed, at the club, we spend a lot of time at the club. So obviously needed to perform my prayers while I'm at training. And, they gave me a place to pray and told me, obviously, you can pray here. I really could pray anywhere kind of I wanted to, but I had a place where I could pray when Ramadan came around. And as a Muslim, we fast, 30 days, and it comes around each year, 10 days earlier each year. And you fast from, sunrise to sunset. So it's a kind of a long day. And I had to alter my training schedule a little bit with the club, speak to the high performance coach there and the dietitian. And they were really supportive of obviously me fasting while I'm training and, come in earlier, get my weights done, leave earlier throughout the day so I can kind of get my rest. So the club was really good and the players were awesome and supportive. So I never had an issue being who I was at the club. And for me, that was massive, that I could still be, practicing Muslim at the club and not have to shy away from that. The support from the AFL, from the club, was really good. And because it was a way of life for me, I didn't want to obviously change that just because I'm an AFL player.
What's the main things you would probably take from the career you had into that sort of situation to pass on to the kids that you're mentoring and that sort of thing in the program? And at the same time, what is something you would look back and if you could go back, say to yourself to maybe change the situation, obviously apart from the obvious 18 months ban, that sort of thing, but just anything generally that you'd say to yourself, that would have been something I would have maybe changed in the time that I was there?
Yeah, so I work for the AFL, and part of my role is to manage the Bachelor League programs and multicultural programs, so all the talent programs. So, in my role there, it's about like you just said, mentoring those kids, bringing them into our programs and making sure it's a safe environment for them. And then we focus on their football development, their leadership and cultural identity. But the main thing is we use football as a vehicle to bring them in to be part of these programs and talent pathways. But ideally, we want them to be great leaders and great people in their communities, whether male or female, because we know that statistically they're not all going to get drafted. They're not all going to go play AFL, but ultimately they're all going to go be hopefully, teachers or tradies or doctors and hopefully play footy for a long time. But ideally, we want them to be great people and great leaders and reflect that in their community and be able to help others and to gain from our programs and go and educate other people around that as well. So I love my role, and I've got an opportunity to provide that knowledge that I might have got in that short time playing AFL to these young participants, and trying to help them get ready. Because for me, I felt like I wasn't ready when I got to AFL because not age wise, but more being an elite athlete. What does that take? As I said, I played footy at a short, started footy late. By the time I got around to playing AFL, I still was learning my craft. I still was learning how to be an elite athlete. Then I got that ban. And like you said, that kind of derailed my development a little bit in my second year. Missed my third year, came back, in the fourth. But really, that was only my second and a half continuing on. So that definitely played a part in shortening my career. But what I can help provide these kids is teach them what it's like to be an elite athlete, treat them like that through our program so that when they do play NAB League or VFL and hopefully AFL, that they're prepared and they know what's to come, because it is cutthroat. You got to be disciplined. You need to sacrifice. You need to be resilient. You need to be, mentally tough as well, because it's a tough environment and it comes with a lot of pressure. So we try to teach them all that, but also focusing on, their leadership skills and their cultural identity as well.
I think I could speak on behalf of anyone that's listening to you speak right now and say how lucky we are to have you in that role, mate, because your enthusiasm and as Nick said before, your good humour and approach to life is not only refreshing, but it's something that is badly needed as a reminder for all of us to focus on what is important and what we can do and help. So from me, just thank you to you for what you do. And of course, when I grew up, it was always wog this, wog that when I was at school. And so, it's really important that you can show young kids of a non-Anglo background that they have the opportunity to be successful as well. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
funnily enough, I guess, but before we finish up, for a football podcast, we actually haven't spoken a lot about football and your actual time at St Kilda. But I mean, for as short as it was, there were some pretty good moments. I mean, there were multiple bags of multiple goals, 3 and 4. You averaged a goal and a half a game over your 30 games or 33 games, I think it was. But is there a moment or a series of moments that sticks out to you as your favorite part of that part of your life?
Well, yeah, playing, obviously training and being part of the club and stuff like that, that's awesome. But yeah, I think anyone or any kid, when they think about playing footy, or being an elite athlete, it's playing in front of a crowd, representing your club, playing with your teammates, doing it on the big stage. And for me, I love that part. I love being able to play and perform. And obviously when you win a game in front of I remember my first 2-3 games, I couldn't sleep at night because of the adrenaline. I could just hear the crowd still when I was trying to go to sleep, and I was almost addicted to that adrenaline rush. And I just wanted to get to the next game and hopefully I played good enough to play. But I just wanted to get to that next game to be able to get in front of the crowd again and play for my team and hopefully win. And as a forward, mate, kicking goals and celebrating in the crowd and stuff, that's always awesome as well. And obviously a couple of goals that still stick out to me. But as I said, just being able to play AFL level on the G or something like that, mate, that's for me was awesome.
And what's your connection with the club like these days? You still in contact with a few of the players? Do you get onto the games still? Do you watch every game on TV sort of thing? What's your sort of level that you're at these days?
I haven't, not a lot of connection still to the club. Besides, I still obviously support them and watch them on TV. Haven't been to a lot of games. I haven't been to a lot of games in general. I still play footy and 2 young sons as well, so I don't really get around to many games. But I still watch them. I don't really talk to a lot of the guys. Still obviously have them on social media and stay in contact that way. But besides maybe Tom Curran, who he's probably the only one I kind of really stay in touch with, and we might catch up when we're around each other and stuff. But other than that, really not much connection. Besides, like I said, supporting it, and then obviously I'm going to obviously raise my sons to be Saints supporters, and hopefully one day they can play for the Saints and they're good enough. But I'll definitely, once they get a little bit old, I'll definitely be taking to games and stuff like that, because I definitely want them to be immersed in that, obviously in the club, and understand that that's where their dad played. And I'm really proud of that. Yes, it was only 33 games, but I'm really proud to say that I played at AFL, and my kid can break for a team that his dad played for. So for me, that's I'm pretty proud of that.
Well, Ahmed, it may have only been 33 games, but it was peppered with, I guess, highlights and lowlights. 2 Goal of the Year nominations in your first year. And, that's 33 more games than any of us on this show have ever played. So, mate, thank you for your contribution to our footy club. Thanks for coming on the show, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Ahmed Saad there, and really enlightening, impressive man, Ahmed Saad. It was great to chat to Ahmed. I guess we put an eye towards Sydney this weekend, Sunday afternoon at Marvel. They beat us by 51 points only a couple of months ago at the SCG, and they're flying now. They're fighting for a top 4 spot, currently in second, equal on points with Melbourne, Brisbane and Collingwood. Obviously, the Lions and the D's play each other in Queensland on Friday night. The Pies take on the Blues at the G. But the equation for Sydney is pretty simple. Win, and they are in the top 4. H, what do you see as the changes this week with Crouch and Webster out? We've seen on the club website they've nominated Josh Battle, obviously Dan Hannebery to come back potentially, Bytel, Burns, Connolly, etc., and Jones, who was the Medi sub, obviously on the weekend.
You hope that maybe, Battle comes back. We didn't miss him so much in the back line the week gone, I don't think, but he gives us that flexibility of being able to move a couple of other players around where we want them, sort of thing. And they've got a pretty potent forward line, Sydney, so we're kind of going to need a player who can play on a big forward, play on a small forward. Is the player who we're able to just sort of throw at, okay, get on them. They're the player we need to focus on. And he could probably step onto a buddy for a little bit if someone's not like say Dougal's down for a moment or something, or it can jump to a Papley if Papley's running right all of a sudden. He's got that flexibility to just be able to fill in where we need him. So, is Wanganeen Malira in a position to be playing? Because, as we were saying before, he'd be someone that I'd like to see come back this week. I haven't heard anything saying he's not available.
No.
But if he is, I think he should be coming back. Just get that bit of pace on Sydney. They're still that not fast team. They're not a quick team. They've picked up a bit over the last year or so with a few of their recruits that they'll move out of the back line a little bit quick, but they like the inside, hard, tough ball most of the time. So if we move away from that pack quickly, then we'll get that run from Clark. We get the run from Wanganeen Malira, just to clear it out of that area where they like the congestion and that sort of thing. So it's, if he's available, I'd be bringing him back in. And I mean, Jones, I don't know, is he any better than a medical sub at the moment? He got out there on the weekend after Webster went down and threw himself around a bit, but it wasn't a massive contribution from him. But I mean, at the same time, it's against the old team. Does he lift a bit against the old team? And I mean, as we're saying, we pretty much have to win by 100 points for any to even be a chance of making finals. So it's one of those games where we've just got to throw everything at whatever we can and hope for the best possible result. But the absolute dream, I guess. But it's a matter of let's. It's almost a practice for next year. Get the team that we think will be best from what's available to run into next year. First round.
They're not the quickest team. You're right, actually. They're not the quickest team in terms of leg speed, but in terms of footy smarts, footy IQ, and the way that they move the ball, their ball movement, they're right up there. And I actually think that they're in that top 2 or 3 teams in terms of the flag. I know people are talking about obviously Melbourne and Geelong as the two kind of almost fait accomplis to play off in the grand final. But I think Sydney can give this a real shake. But Phil, like H said, if we win by 100 points, anything's possible. You're on record as saying we're still a chance. So what do you want to see out of this weekend?
So anything less than Jack Bytel coming in for Crouch is just utterly ridiculous, right? So
no farewell game for Dan Hannebery potentially.
Bytel has to come in, right? There is no sentiment for playing Hannebery as a farewell game if he does retire at the expense of someone like Bytel. Sorry. Connolly, right? This kid showed plenty in the last few rounds of last season. And he had an injury-interrupted preseason. And for whatever reason, he hasn't done what the coaches have asked of him in order to be promoted. But at some point, I've seen this in sport, there are some players that play well anywhere that they play, and there are other players that perform at the higher level when they're given that opportunity. If Battle comes back straight into the team, Sharman needs to play forward. I don't know how many times I need to say this before someone listens within the coaching group. Connolly comes in. Personally, I'd be playing Connolly between mid and half forward, just obviously to give him some opportunities to show what he can do as well. And it's against an amazing team, as you said, Nick, right? This Sydney outfit, they are the professionals of the professionals. And we just need to have a crack. And, they often say on the TV coverage on Fox Footy, Nick Rewald and the others, better to go down by 10 goals trying things than to have an honourable loss of 15 points. And, I have tongue-in-cheek said that we're still a chance. So does that mean we're still a chance? Yeah, and we are still a chance. So, without jumping into That's So St Kilda, because I know that we're drawing to a close, my That's So St Kilda this week is that Collingwood beat Carlton by 57 points. We need to win by 51 points, and we're 56 points up. And some Sydney player gets the ball, probably Paddy McCartan, I think it was suggested by Michael on Twitter. Paddy McCartan gets the ball from 53 out, kicks it from 56, and dobs it through the goal to see us miss out by 1 point percentage in making the finals. That would be so St Kilda.
H, while we're on That's So St Kilda, do you want to give us yours?
I think it's pretty much exactly the same as what Parko sent through us before we started tonight. And yeah, Crouch been suspended for hitting a player who didn't even leave the field to have an assessment. The doctors didn't even think it was needed to test him. He got straight back up and kept playing. And then we see 2 weeks ago, Cripps, yes, the tribunal suspended him, but then he gets off through the courts, and Archie's going to miss the second week. So Cripps has come and played 2 games while Archie's missed 2 games. And we go back even further to Paddy Ryder playing statues in the middle of the MCG and getting suspended. So we just seem to have copped the rough end of it this year. And I don't know whether we feel like we do it every year, but as I've been saying, I think there needs to be a bit of a change in the tribunal system. I don't know if Michael Christian's still doing as good a job as he was. I don't know whether he's really done a good job since he started, but yeah, it just seems to be so inconsistent, and there seems to be a few favourites and that sort of thing that just, and I'm still wondering if his hate for us goes back to Danny Frawley belting him at Victoria Park that day. I'm not 100% certain. So yeah,
the system is broken. I don't think there's any doubt about that, and maybe we'll keep that for an off-season, post-season topic of discussion. The tribunal system and MRO and all that sort of stuff. But my That's So St Kilda, I'm going back to Parko again, separate topic, but he tweeted after the game on Friday night, "Never been a more appropriate way for the Saints season to end. There for the taking, and they missed 6 set shots in a row, game over." I mean, that is about as St Kilda as you can get. And I know we're talking about this, 0.1% chance and the 100-point turnaround that we need to sneak that final spot in the 8, but I mean, let's be honest. We've had our chances. We've had our chances over the last 8 weeks to solidify a spot in the 8, and we haven't taken any of them. And game over is a good way of putting it. I guess some other talking points before we finish up with the standard, I guess, podcast awards. Windhager, obviously, as we've touched on, the Rising Star nomination. Finally, is the first St Kilda Rising Star nomination since round 12, 2020. Which was Max King. We've spoken about King's goal kicking. Obviously, I don't think we need to talk about that anymore. But Hannebery, as we record this podcast on Wednesday evening, there's been some talk around the socials. Tom Brown's been reporting that Dan Hannebery's set to announce his retirement in the coming days. I guess just quickly, H and Phil, your take on Dan Hannebery's career year. Should he play on another year or should he not?
Tom Brown reporting that obviously means there's 3 more years in him. So, it's just he's been truly unlucky since he got to us. That's the only thing you could say. It's
quality.
His record, his playing record at Sydney was nothing short of amazing. He almost didn't miss a match for them, and all of a sudden he's come along to us, and these injuries have just decimated him. You see 2 weeks ago when he played, and the way our midfield rotated and worked together, and he was out there keeping them organised. The football brain he's got is brilliant. And it's just unfortunate. His body's let him down over the last few years, and it's robbed us as well. It's robbed the team of a very, very good footballer. So yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, if it is the end, that's where it's fallen short of what we really expected. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's really no fault of his own for what's happened.
So I'd give him one more year. I reckon that if you drafted some kid at pick 76, well, I mean, what pick did Matt Allison come in?
26.
26.
Yeah.
And he's as far away from a senior spot as I am from being the Cleo Bachelor of the Year, given I've been married for 18 years. And you think
that's what's keeping you from being Cleo Bachelor of the Year, the fact that you're married.
Clearly, that's the only thing, Nick, and I won't hear you suggest otherwise. But I just think that if he's on minimal money and we give him one more year to see, I think we lose nothing. But the irony of that, and H mentioned his record, but when we recruited Brad Crouch, he had averaged 11 games per season for the 4 years prior to coming over from Adelaide. And I thought, my God, we're bringing somebody over whose injury record is not flash, and yet he's been as durable as anyone and played some amazing football. And I think that what that demonstrates, what that shows is when you get somebody that's got that elite talent, they do add to the program. And absolutely, I echo everything H said again. When he was out on that field a couple of weeks back, marshalling the troops, telling people which patterns to run, where to go, and then using his disposal with pretty good efficiency, not 100%, but he would have been over 80%, I would have thought. We've missed that for the 4 years that he's not been able to get onto the park. So do you judge it on the raw numbers? If you do, you say it's been an absolute failure. But at the same time, I just quite wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just one more year.
You're only saying that because I owe you a sandwich if he gets one more year, and I swear it's not happening. But look, Dan Hannebery.
So just for everybody out there, not just any old sandwich. We're not talking about like some ham, cheese, and pickles that you slap together from the local deli. We're talking about Saul's sandwiches. And if you don't know what Saul's sandwiches are, check them out. Go down, get one, and that will be the best thing I've said on this podcast tonight.
And tell them that you heard about them from us, because hopefully we could get a sponsorship out of it. That'd be great. Just some free sandwiches, which means I wouldn't have to buy you one anyway, Phil. But look, it's a really tough one. It's a really divisive subject, isn't it? Because at his best, when he's fit and healthy, he is elite. And you said it, H. I mean, his career at Sydney was elite. His awards, his accomplishments, the things that he was able to achieve over those years in Sydney. I mean, he was an incredible player. And we were hoping that we were going to get that player, and it hasn't worked out. And, we had Nathan Freeman on the show last week. We had Darren Minchington on a couple of weeks ago. All of this goes to show you. You mentioned Brad Crouch a minute ago, Phil. There is so much that you can control in the game of football, but there is also so much that you cannot control. And unfortunately, we've hit the wrong end of the stick in that case with Dan Hannebery. But there are plenty of other examples when things have turned out right for whatever the player or team, and unfortunately, we just haven't got it this time. I think in the case of giving him another year, I think if the deal was something like your absolute minimum wage, your rookie list or whatever, rookie contract, etc., base payment plus any match payments and bonuses, etc., then I think that's probably a fair deal, because then you're talking apples and apples with bringing in a rookie with pick 77. Anything more than that, and I think that we can't afford to keep messing around with this type of stuff. And we've made mistakes before. I'm not saying that recruiting him was a mistake. That's a topic for a conversation for another day. But we're at a really vital phase of our football club's history and development, I guess, where we've got to start doing the right things. And I think sometimes when you get to these forks in the road. You've got to make hard decisions. We've made hard decisions before. We just heard from Ahmed Saad, and we had to make hard decisions on him twice. And I think that potentially we've done our dash with Dan Hannebery, unless the deal is incredibly worth it for us as a football club. Time for our weekly awards. The Jason Blake Award, someone who doesn't get as much recognition as they deserve. What have you got?
Oh, I'd have to go our best on ground this week. Mason Wood. He's starting to get the plaudits he probably deserves. Starting to. It's the sort of game that's going to make a few people just sort of go, oh, okay, maybe he's not so bad. And he's been a little bit of a whipping boy this year, it seems, despite the fact he's been reasonably consistent for us. But yeah, from what we saw on the weekend, you couldn't fault him any stage on the night. And yeah, that's the sort of performance. I guess if he puts a few more in like that, he might start winning a lot more fans than what he currently has.
Well, I gave Mason Wood 3 votes, so I'm not going to give him another award. I'm going back to my old favourite, Seb Ross.
You got to give us some context.
Well, he just keeps doing it. He is without a doubt, along with Jack Billings, the most maligned player on our list. People have a crack at him and Billings every time they open their mouths or become keyboard warriors. And I just want to make sure that we are absolutely paying homage to the work that Seb Ross has done, because, as I said earlier in the show, his year this year has probably been his best since he came to the club, and just want to honour and respect the work that he's done to get there, because I still don't think he gets the plaudits that he deserves.
Very well said. I've gone Jared Lynott. I agree with everything both of you have said about both of those guys, actually, but I'm going to go Jared Lynott. I think that he is a very, very underrated part of our lineup, and I think that we play football better when he's in it. He doesn't do anything incredibly well. He's not elite at anything, but he's good at a lot of different things, and he can fill gaps and fill holes for us in a number of ways, and he's done that a number of times this year. Phil, why are you looking at me like that?
Because I think that, just as I acknowledge that Seb Ross, I have a bit of a man crush on him, I think you just need to come out and just say that you have a bit of a man crush on Jared Lynott.
I've said all year that I thought that our pickup of Jared Lynott was a very shrewd investment, and that I was very happy with it from day one. So that's all. I think that's all I need to say. Shannon Knoll, who needs to lift outside of you, old man Phil?
See, that's not fair that you get in with an attack on me like that, because clearly I was going to suggest you need to lift, Splitter. But look, clearly the chairman of selectors needs to lift, and they need to put Leo Connolly in the team, Jack Bytel in the team. They need to put Sharman up forward. They need to try and get a bit of structure. And speaking of structure, I don't know Brendan Lade from a jar of salt, but clearly our forward line has not worked properly this year, either in attack or when we've attempted to try and keep the ball in defensively. And so maybe, just maybe, along with the chairman of selectors, Brendan Lade needs to lift as well.
H?
It's a tough one this week, because I had a few players I was looking at going, is it going to be I guess a last chance or something to put themselves forward this year or something like that? But I've gone with Hunter Clark. I just feel like he's back. He's got a few games under his belt now. I just want to start seeing that form that he had before he got those injuries, and just seeing that skill that he shows and the poise. And he seems to have been a bit rushed in the game since he's come back this year. And his disposal has shown that. He's struggled to hit some targets. He's struggled to, I guess, find the space and the good positions, and just love to see him lift and get back to where he was, because he was a huge reason why we were starting to look good, and he could be one of those reasons that we come back next year and really pick up from where our first half of the season was going this year.
I've gone almost the entire football department, and it's not a knock on Brett Ratton, although he's certainly a big part of the football department. I still think that he's the right man to lead this team, but there seems to be some sort of dysfunction between our football department and what they're saying off the field and what's happening on the field, whether it's in terms of forward structure and how the ball gets delivered forward, whether it's around Max King and his goal kicking and the coaching options and training options and the people that are putting their hand up to give him a help, outside of the club and the messaging around that. I just think that something is broken at worst and just dysfunctional at best at the moment. And I'm not sure what it is that needs fixing, but something needs fixing in there. And I think that we're going to have, a really important 6 months to try and get a lot of these things right. Coaching department, assistant coaches, line coaches, etc., are going to be a really important part of what happens. Word of Lenny Hayes coming back to the footy club after a couple of years out of coaching is positive, but we don't know where his head's at and what he's been doing for the last couple of years, and is that the right choice? A lot of question marks around our footy department and what happens moving forward post, I guess, this weekend. But I guess we'll see. But I think the footy department as a whole, from the coach to head of football to the captain to the players on the field and everyone that plays in the twos, I think everybody has to lift, and that's just a reality of our game. If we want to be a legitimate finals contender and premiership threat, everybody has to lift. But for now, we look towards Sydney. They are the professionals, as you said, Phil. I think that's a very good way of putting it. Bloods culture exists for a reason, and they are one of the most professional organisations in sports in this country. In fact, I would probably put it in the world. They're an incredible organisation. They're playing some bloody good football at the moment. So it's going to be tough, but there is a 0.001% chance that we win by 100 points or we win by 50 and others lose by 60 and we scrape in, but I wouldn't bank on it. But for now, go Saints.